evening, everybody. Welcome to Aunty Andrea's Reading Corner. I'm your delightful host, Andrea. I apologize for the delay. I was having some, we'll just call it some technical difficulties. I had to switch up. So this might help. Get some natural light. Yay! Oh, ding! I've got some good news. I'm pretty sure I figured out the recipe for time travel. Last night before I went to bed, I was drinking box wine mixed with Rockaberry wine cooler. And then this morning, apparently I lost time, approximately 2 months of time, because it has to be at least November 2020. Like, it's the only logical explanation for waking up to this dark, dreary, cold weather. So anyway, you heard it here first. That's the key. I can't believe how cold it is. I'm not trying to be bitchy or complaining, but I actually went back to bed for a while after I woke up. Hi, Michelle. Hello. That's my Mrs. Doubtfire. Good to see you. And I'm much warmer now. I've had to shut all the windows, and I had a shower, and anyway, so I'm feeling better. I'm reading by candlelight this evening. I have literally candles. Because I had the kitchen light on, but I looked dead. I can't explain it. So, like I said, technical difficulties. Oh, can I push a button to wave you? Wave. Apparently, I can bring you on camera. I won't do that to you now, but someday, soon, we will do that. Okay. I don't really have any news to report. I had, pretty good weekend. Had a wonderful birthday celebration at Michelle and Robbie's house. Happy birthday, Michelle. 36, I can't believe it. I was 36 the day I rolled back into Vancouver, which, by the way, the anniversary of that was last night, 9 years ago. So it was very weird, actually, last night. I was thinking that, like, wow, life cycles come in nines. I won't get into all that hocus pocus, but yeah, I just thought it was really interesting. So happy birthday, Shell. Hello. Anyway, sadly, I will mention this, just a little side note, a little catch up, seeing as we're, talking a lot about COVID, and I've always made it a bit of a part of what I do is kind of just updating and passing on my thoughts. Unfortunately, I heard today somebody I know has contracted COVID. She's had it for 7 days. She has pneumonia. My heart goes out to her and her family. I text her and I just said, you know what, you just take it one day at a time and do what the doctors tell you to do. Apparently she has been advised to stay home and to quarantine, and if she can't breathe, to call 911. I hope that her advice was given more eloquently than that and with much more detail and compassion. I don't know, but the reason I wanted to mention it is because I'm wondering if anybody else knows anybody who did have it. Shelley, I know that you did, of course, because your mother, Dixie, our beloved Dixie, passed away from it. But what I'm wondering is, what kind of advice are they giving out these days? I'm going to look it up myself tomorrow, probably, just, so I can support her at a distance. But, I guess my point is, be careful. Just, people say, oh, I don't know anybody who got it. Well, now I know too. That's too many as far as I'm concerned. So I don't want to, bring everyone down. I'm just saying, again, my best advice to her was to do what the doctors tell you to do and call 911 if you have trouble breathing, and take it one day at a time. And that's all we can do. So all the best to her. And hi, Jen. Hi, Nikki. Hey, oh my God, Zach, everybody. Hi. Sam. Hi, babe. How are you? It's so good to see you all. Okay, you know what? I'm not going to waste any time. We are going to continue with the madcap adventures of Margaret and her friends. Last we were reading that grandmother Sylvia popped in, who we now can guess that Mom and Dad think that Grandma Sylvia is a bad influence or an influence on Margaret, but we love Sylvia. So, moving on to chapter 4 with Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, by Judy Blume, written in 1970. Relevant in any day and age. Hi, Ben. Hi, honey. No, I'm not putting on heels, so stop asking. Okay. On Wednesday night, my mother helped me wash my hair. She set it in big rollers for me. I planned to sleep like that all night, but after an hour, they hurt my head, so I took them out. On Thursday morning, I got up early, but I had trouble eating. My mother said it was natural for me to feel uneasy on the first day of school. She said when she was a girl, she felt the same way. My mother's always telling me about when she was a girl. is supposed to make me feel like that she understands everything. I put on my new plaid cotton back-to-school dress. My mother likes me in blue. She says it brings out the color of my eyes. She said, I wore my brown loafers without socks. My mother thought that was dumb. Margaret, you have to walk 3/4 of a mile. So? So you know you get blisters every time you go without socks. Well, then I'll just have to suffer. But why suffer? Wear socks. Now, that's my point about my mother. I mean, if she understands so much about me, then why couldn't she understand that I had to wear loafers without socks? Hey, Cheryl. Good to see you, honey. I told her, Nancy says nobody in 6th grade wears socks on the first day of school. Margaret, I don't know what I'm going to do with you when you're a teenager if you're acting like this now. That's another thing. My mother's always talking about when I'm a teenager. Stand up straight, Margaret. Good posture now makes for a good figure later. Wash your face with soap, Margaret. Then you won't get pimples when you're a teenager. If you ask me, being a teenager is pretty rotten. Between pimples and worrying about how bad you smell. Finally, my mother told me to have a good day. She kissed my cheek and gave me a pat on the back. I walked down to Nancy's house. Hi, Kirby. Hi, Nathan. Nate, yay. By the time I got to room 18 of the Delano Elementary School, my feet hurt so much I thought I wouldn't make it through the day. Why are mothers always right about these things? As it turned out, half the girls had on knee socks anyway. The teacher wasn't in the room when we got there. That is, the real teacher. There was this girl who I thought was the teacher, but she turned out to be a kid in our class. She was very tall, that's why I thought she was the teacher, with eyes shaped like a cat's. You could see the outline of her bra through her blouse, and you could also tell from the front that it wasn't the smallest size. She sat down alone and didn't talk to anyone. I wondered if maybe she was new too, because everybody else was busy talking and laughing about summer vacations and new hairstyles and all that. The class quietened down in a big hurry when a man walked into the room, nodded at us, and wrote a name on the blackboard. Hi, James. Jim. Miles J. Benedict, Jr. When he turned away from the blackboard, he cleared his throat. That's me, he said, pointing to the name on the board. Then he cleared his throat 2 more times. I'm your new teacher. Nancy poked me in the ribs and whispered, Can you believe it? The whole class was whispering and grinning. Mr. Benedict went back to the board. He wrote 6 phrases. Then he turned to us, put his hands behind his back, and kind of rocked back and forth on his feet. He cleared his throat, so I knew he was going to say something. Sorry, I'm just mesmerized by this moth in my window. Now then, you know my name. I'll tell you something about myself. I'm 24 years old. I'm a graduate of Columbia Teachers College, and, well, this is my first teaching position. Now that you know about me, I would like to find out about you. So, if you will copy these 6 phrases off the board and then complete them, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. He coughed. I thought he was going to wind up with a very sore throat. Mr. Benedict Jr. handed out the paper himself. I read his 6 phrases. Hey, Bob, how you doing? Christina, hi, baby. I read his 6 phrases. My name is, please call me, I like, I hate, this year in school, I think male teachers are. I nibbled on the edge of my pencil. The first 2 were easy. I wrote, my name is Margaret Ann Simon. Please call me Margaret. The next 2 were harder. I liked and hated a million things, and I didn't know what he wanted to know about. Also, he wouldn't answer any questions. He just sat at his desk and watched us. He tapped his fingers and crossed his legs. Finally, I wrote, I like long hair, tuna fish, the smell of rain, and things that are pink. I hate pimples, baked potatoes, when my mother's mad, and religious holidays. This year in school, I want to have fun, and also learn enough to go to 7th grade. I think male teachers are, Well, that was the worst. How was I supposed to know? Every teacher is different. But I couldn't think of a way to fit it in, so I wrote, sorry, I think male teachers are the opposite of female teachers. There, that ought to do it. It was a stupid answer, but I thought it was also a pretty stupid question. At 2:30, Nancy slipped me a note. She said, "Secret club meets today after school at my house. No socks." I went home to change before going to Nancy's. Hi, Dania. Good to see you, honey. I went to change before going to Nancy's. My mother was waiting for me. "Let's have a snack and you can tell me all about your first day at school," she said. "I can't," I told her. "No time now. I've got to go to Nancy's house. I'm joining her secret club." "Oh, that's nice," my mother said. "Just tell me about your teacher. What's she like?" "Well, it's a he," I said. "His name is Mr. Benedict, and this is his first job." "Oh, gats. A first-time teacher. What could be worse?" "He's not that bad," I told my mother. "I thought he was really nice." "We'll see how much you learn," my mother said. I changed into shorts and a polo and walked to Nancy's. Chapter 5. The others were already there. Janie Loomis, Gretchen Potter, and Nancy. That was it. We sat around on the porch and Nancy brought us Cokes and cookies. When Gretchen helped herself to 6 Oreos. At once, Nancy asked her how much weight she'd gained over the summer. Gretchen put back 4 cookies and said, "Not much." Fucking hate Nancy, by the way. "Did you see Laura Danker come in this morning?" Janie asked. "Which one is she?" I asked. They all giggled. Nancy spoke to me as if she were my mother. "Margaret, dear, you can't possibly miss Laura Danker. The big blonde with the big you-know-whats." "Oh, yeah, I noticed her right off," I said. "She's very pretty." "Pretty?" Nancy snorted. "You be smart and stay away from her. She's got a bad reputation." "What do you mean?" I asked. "My brother says she goes behind the A&P with him and Moose." "And," Janie added, "she's been wearing a bra since 4th grade, and I'll bet she gets her period." Boys, it just gets better from here. Did you get it yet, Margaret?" Nancy asked. "Get what?" "Hi, Diane." "Sorry." "Did you get it yet, Margaret?" Nancy asked. "Get what?" "Your period," Nancy said, like I should have known. "Oh, no, not yet. You?" Nancy swallowed some soda and shook her head. "No, none of us have had it yet." I was glad to hear that. I mean, suppose they all got it already and I was the only one who didn't. I'd feel awful. Gretchen smacked her lips, brushed the cookie crumbs off her lap, and said, "Let's get down to business." "Agreed," Nancy said. "First of all, we need a good club name this year. Everybody think up a name for our club." It got quiet. Everybody thought. I didn't really think, but I pretended to. I didn't even know anything about the club, so how could I pick out a name? Gretchen suggested the SGCT, which meant the 6th grade QTs. Janie said that sounded really dumb. So Gretchen told Janie if she was so smart, why didn't she suggest a name? Janie suggested the MJB girls, which meant the Miles J. Benedict girls. Nancy told Janie she'd forgotten the junior on the end of his name. Janie got mad and excused herself to go to the bathroom. "As long as we're on the subject," Nancy said, "what do you think of Miles J.?" "I think he's cute," Gretchen giggled. "He is, but he's too skinny," Nancy said. Then I finally thought of something to say. "I wonder if he's married." Janie joined us again. "My guess is no. He doesn't look married." "Anyhow, did you see the way he looked at Laura?" Nancy said. "No, did he?" Gretchen opened her eyes wide. "Naturally, men can't help but look at her," Nancy said. "But do you think she looks the way..." I said, "But do you think she looks that way on purpose?" The others laughed and Nancy said, "Oh, Margaret." Nancy had a great way of making me feel like a dope. Then we talked about Mr. Benedict's questions, and Gretchen told us that she wrote, "Male teachers are very strict." Sorry, I'm getting texts. Gretchen told us that she wrote, "Male teachers are very strict, because if Mr. Benedict thought we were afraid of him, he'd bend over backwards to be really easygoing and nice." I thought that was pretty clever, and I kind of wished I'd written it myself. Well, the whole idea of those questions is just to find out if we're normal, Janie said. I hadn't thought about that. Now it's too late. Well, how can you tell if we're normal? I asked. That's easy, Nancy said. From the way you answered. Like, if you said, I hate my mother, my father, and my brother, you might be weird. Get it? I got it. Nancy snapped her fingers. Oh, I have the perfect name for our club, she said. What is it? Gretchen said. Tell us, Janie said. We'll be the 4 PTSs. Nancy tossed her hair around and smiled. The preteen sensations. Hey, that's good, Gretchen said. I love it, Janie squealed. We had a secret vote to pass the club name, and naturally it passed. Then Nancy decided we should all have secret sensational names, such as Alexandra, Veronica, Kimberly, and Mavis. Nancy got to be Alexandra. I was Mavis. Nancy reminded us that nobody in school was to know anything about our secret club, and that at secret meetings such as this, we were to use our secret names. We all had to solemnly swear, then we all had to think up a rule. Nancy's rule was we all had to wear bras. I felt my cheeks turn red. I wondered if the others wore them already. I didn't think Janie did because she looked down at the floor after Nancy said it. Gretchen's rule was the first one to get her period has to tell the others all about it, especially how it feels. Janie's rule was we all had to keep a boy book, which was a notebook with a list of boys' names in order of how we liked them. Each week we had to change our lists and pass the boy books around, of course. Finally, Nancy asked me what my rule was. I couldn't think of one to equal the others, so I said, we meet on a certain day each week. Naturally, Nancy said, but what day? Well, I don't know, I told her. Okay, let's think up a good day. Sorry. Okay, let's think up a good day, Gretchen said. Tuesday and Thursday are out. I have to go to Hebrew school. Oh, Gretchen, Janie said. You and that Hebrew school business. Can't you get out of it? I'd love to, Gretchen explained. But I've got to go one more year and then I'm through. What about you, Margaret? Do you go? Janie asked me. You mean to Hebrew school? Yes. No, I don't go. Margaret doesn't even go to Sunday school. Isn't that right? Nancy said. Yes, I answered. How'd you arrange that? Gretchen asked. I'm not any religion. You're not? Gretchen's mouth fell open. What are your parents? Janie asked. Nothing, I said. How positively neat, Gretchen said. Then they all just looked at me and nobody said anything, and I felt pretty silly. So I tried to explain. See, my father, he was Jewish, and my mom, she was Christian, and Nancy's face lit up. Go on. This was the first time they were interested in anything I had to say. Well, my mother's parents, who live in Ohio, told her they didn't want a Jewish son-in-law. If she wanted to ruin her life, that was her business. But they would never accept my father for her husband. No kidding, Gretchen said. How about your father's family? Well, my grandmother wasn't happy about getting a Christian daughter-in-law, but she at least accepted the situation. So what happened? Jeanie asked. They eloped. Oh, how romantic, Nancy sighed. So that's why we're not anything. I don't blame them, Gretchen said. I wouldn't be either. But if you aren't any religion, how are you going to know if you should join the Y or the Jewish Community Center? Jeanie asked. Well, I don't know, I said. I never thought about it. Maybe we just won't join either one. But everyone belongs to one or the other, Nancy said. Well, I guess that will be up to my parents, I said, really needing to change the subject. I never meant to tell them that story in the first place. So anyway, what day should we meet? Nancy announced that Friday was no good for a meeting day because she had piano lessons. Janie said she had ballet on Wednesday, so I said that only left Mondays, and we agreed that Monday would be our meeting day. Next week, we had to bring our boy books and get checked to make sure we were all wearing our bras. When the meeting was over, Nancy raised her arms high above her head. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Here's to the 4 PTSs. Hooray! Long live the PTSs," we chanted. All through supper, I thought about how I was going to tell my mother I wanted to wear a bra. I wondered why she hadn't ever asked me if I wanted one, since she knew so much about being a girl. When she came in to kiss me goodnight, I said it. I want to wear a bra, just like that. No beating around the bush. My mother turned the bedroom light back on. Margaret, how come? I just do is all. I hid under the covers so she couldn't see my face. My mother took a deep breath. Well, if you really want to, then we'll have to go shopping on Saturday. Okay? Okay, I smiled. My mother wasn't so bad. She turned out the light and closed my door halfway. Was I ever glad that was over? Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. I just told my mother I want a bra. Please help me grow, God. You know where. I want to be like everyone else. You know, God, my new friends all belong to the Y or the Jewish Community Center. Which way am I supposed to go? I don't know what you want me to do about that. Chapter 6. Hey, for sticking around, guys. I'm just loving it. It's so good. This is so nice because it's just more fun than reading alone. Chapter 6. The next day after school, Mr. Benedict called me up to his desk. Margaret, he said, I'd like to discuss your getting to know you paper. For instance, why do you hate religious holidays? Was I sorry I wrote that? How positively stupid of me. If it was true that he was trying to find out if we were normal, I guess he thought I wasn't. I half laughed. Oh, well, I just wrote that. I really don't hate them at all. You must have a reason. You can tell me. It's confidential. I raised my right eyebrow at Mr. Benedict. I can do that really good. Raise one without the other. I do it whenever I can't think of anything else to say. People notice it right away. Some people actually ask me how I do it. They forget what we were talking about and concentrate on my eyebrow. I don't know exactly how I do it. What I do is think about it, and the eyebrow goes up. I can't do it with my left, only my right. Me too. I'm pretty sure I trained myself to do it because of this book, just as a side note. Mr. Benedict noticed, but he didn't ask me anything about how I do it. He just said, I'm sure you have a perfectly good reason for hating religious holidays. I know he was waiting for me to say something. He wasn't going to just forget about it. So I decided to get it over with in a hurry. None of those holidays are special to me. I don't belong to any religion, I said. Mr. Benedict seemed pleased, like he had uncovered some deep, dark mystery. I see. And your parents? They aren't any religion. I'm supposed to choose my own when I grow up. If I want to, that is. Mr. Benedict folded his hands and looked at me for a while. Then he said, Okay, Margaret, you can go now. I hoped he decided I was normal. After all, I lived in New York for 11.5 years, and I don't think anybody has ever asked me about my religion. I never even thought about it. Now, all of a sudden, it was the biggest thing in my life. That night when Grandma called, she told me she'd gotten a subscription to Lincoln Center for the two of us. We'd meet on one Saturday a month, have lunch, and then go to a concert. Grandma really is clever. She knew my parents would never say no to one Saturday a month at Lincoln Center. That was culture. And they thought culture was very important. And now Grandma and I would have a chance to spend some time alone. But I was glad that Lincoln Center didn't start right away because I didn't want anything to interfere with Broad Day. First thing on Saturday morning, Moose Freed arrived to cut our lawn. My father sulked behind a sports magazine. His finger was a lot better, but it was still bandaged. Hey, Steve. Hey, Bill. How you doing, guys? I sat around outside while Moose cut the grass. I liked the way he sang as he worked. I also liked his teeth. I saw them when he smiled at me. They were very clean and white, and one in the front was a little crooked. I pretended to be really busy reading a book, but the truth is I was watching Moose. If he looked towards me, I put my nose back in my book in a hurry. Moose would be number 1 in my boy book, if I only was brave enough. But what would Nancy think? She hated him. After her lunch, my mother told Father we were going shopping. We still had our same car, but my mother thought we needed 2 now because there weren't any buses in Farbrook and taxis were so expensive. My father said he'd see, but I knew we'd be getting another one soon. My mother could talk my father into anything. My mother drove to a shopping centre where there was a Lord and Taylor. I had on my blue plaid dress and my loafers without socks and 3 band-aids on my blisters. First, we went to the ladies' lingerie department where my mother told the sales lady we wanted to see a bra for me. The sales lady took one look and then told my mother we'd be better off in the teen department where they had bras in very small sizes. My mother thanked the lady and I almost died. We went down on the escalator and headed for the teen shop. They had a whole display of underwear there, bras and panties and slips to match. All I ever wore was white underpants and regular undershirts, sometimes a slip if I was going to go to a party. My mother went to the counter and told the sales lady we were interested in a bra. I stood back and pretended not to know a thing. I even bent down to scratch a new mosquito bite. "Come here, dear," the sales lady called. I hate people who call you dear. I walked over to the counter and raised my right eyebrow at her. She reached over the top of the counter and said, "Let's measure you, dear." She put the tape measure all the way around me and smiled at my mother. 28, she said. I felt like giving her a pinch. Then she took out a bunch of bras and put them on the counter in front of us. My mother felt them all. "Now, dear, I suggest the Grow bra. It grows with you. You're not quite ready for a AA. Suppose you try them on and see which is the most comfortable." She led us to a dressing room with a pink door that locked. My mother sat in the dressing room on a chair. I took off my dress. I wasn't wearing anything underneath but pants. I picked up the first bra and stuck my arms through the straps. I couldn't fasten it in the back. My mother had to help me. She adjusted the straps and felt the front for me. "How does it feel?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. "Was it too tight?" "No." "Too loose?" "No." "Well, do you like it?" "I guess." "Try on this one." She got me out of the first bra and into the next one. Sorry. "Hey, darling, how you doing, Jason?" Into the next one. I wondered how I'd ever learn to do it by myself. Maybe my mother would have to dress me every day of life. The next bra was softer than the first. Jason, you joined just at the right moment. My mother explained it was made of dacron. I liked the way it felt. My mother nodded. The third one was fancy. It was lace and it made me itch. Mother said it was impractical. The sales lady knocked on the door as I was getting back into my dress. "How did we do? Did we find something?" My mother told her we did. "We'll take 3 of these," she said, holding up the soft bra. When we got back to the counter, who would be there but Janie Loomis and her mother? "Oh, hi, Margaret," she said. I'm getting some winter pajamas." Her cheeks were bright red, and I saw the selection of bras on the counter in front of her. "Yeah, me too," I said. "I'm getting some flannel pajamas for winter." "Okay, well, see you Monday," Janie said. "Yeah, right, Monday." I was plenty glad that my mother was already down at the other end of the counter paying for my bras. Win. Chapter 7. Oh. When I got home, I carried my package straight to my room. I took off my dress and put on my bra. I fastened it first around my waist, then wiggled it up to where it belonged. Michelle, you're not the only one who does that. So I learned this weekend. Weird, I know. I threw my shoulders back and stood sideways. I didn't look any different. I took out a pair of socks and stuffed one sock into each side of the bra to see if it really grew with me. It was too tight that way, but I liked the way it looked. Like Laura Danker. I took the socks out and put them away. My father congratulated me at dinner. "Well, you're really growing up, my Margaret. No more little girl." "Oh, Daddy," was all I could think to say. On Monday, I studied the boys in my class. I had to have some names for my boy book before 3 o'clock. I picked Philip Leroy because he was the best looking one. Also, Jay Hassler because he has a nice brown eyes and clean fingernails. I decided to leave it at that and explain that I didn't really know anybody else. Right before the bell rang, Mr. Benedict told us that he was going to ask each of us to do a year-long individual project. Everybody groaned. Mr. Benedict held up his hands. "Now, it's not as bad as it sounds, class. For one thing, it's personal. between each of you and me. I'm not going to ask what your topic is. I expect you to choose it for yourself and work it up in your own way. The only thing I insist on is that it be something meaningful. More groans. Mr. Benedict looked crushed. Oh, I'd hoped that you would find this interesting. I can't feel bad for the guy. Poor Mr. Benedict. He was really disappointed. The way he talked to us, I got the feeling we made him nervous. Nobody seems scared of him at all, and you should always be a little scared of your teacher. Sometimes he just sat at his desk and looked out at us like he couldn't believe we were really there. Of course, Nancy pointed out that he never ever called on Laura Danker. I hadn't noticed. As we were getting in line to go home, he reminded us that on Thursday we'd have a test on the first 2 chapters in our social studies book. He asked us to please be prepared. Most teachers never say please. After school, we went straight to Nancy's. Before we started our official meeting, we talked about Mr. Benedict and his project. We all agreed it was crazy and none of us could think of a single idea. Then Nancy called the roll. Veronica? Here, Gretchen said. Kimberly? I'm here, Janie said. Mavis? Yeah, here, I said. And so am I, Alexandra. Nancy closed the roll book. Well, let's get to it. We all feel each other's backs to make sure we're wearing our bras. We all were. What size did you get, Janie? Gretchen asked. I got a grow bra, Katie said. Me too, I said. Me too, Gretchen laughed. Not me, Nancy said, proudly. Mine's a 32 AA. We were all impressed. If you ever want to get out of those baby bras, you have to exercise, she told us. What kind of exercise? Gretchen asked. Like this, Nancy said. She made fists, bent her arms at the elbow, and moved them back and forth. Sticking her chest way out, she said, I must increase my bust. She said it over and over and over. We copied her movements and chanted with her. We must increase our bust. Good, Nancy told us. Do it 35 times a day, and I promise you'll see results. Now for our boy books, Gretchen said. Is everybody ready? We put our boy books on the floor, and Nancy picked them up, one at a time. She read each one and passed it around for the rest of us to see. Janie's was first. She had 7 names listed. Number 1 was Philip Leroy. Gretchen had 4 names. Number 1 was Philip Leroy. Nancy listed 8 boys. I didn't even know 8 boys. And number 1 was Philip Leroy. When Nancy got to my boy book, she choked on an ice cube from her glass of cola. When she stopped choking, she read, Number 1, Philip Leroy. Everyone giggled. Number 2, Jay Hassler. How come you picked him? I was getting mad. I mean, she didn't ask the others why they liked this one or that one, so why should I have to tell? I raised my eyebrow at Nancy, then looked away. She got the message. When we were through, Nancy opened her bedroom door. There were Evan and Moose eavesdropping. They followed us down the stairs and outside. When Nancy said, Get lost, we're busy, Evan and Moose burst out laughing. They shouted, We must increase our bust. Then they fell on the grass and rolled over and over, laughing so hard I hoped that they would both wet their pants. On Tuesday, during an arithmetic review, I heard a bird go, peep. Lots of other kids heard it too, so did Mr. Benedict. I know because he looked up. I went back to my problems, but pretty soon I heard it again. Beep. After the second peep, Mr. Benedict walked to the window and opened it wide. He stuck his head way out, looking all around. While he was doing that, 3 more peeps came from inside the room. Mr. Benedict walked to his desk and stood with his hands behind his back. Peep. I looked at Nancy. I was sure it came from her. But she didn't look at me or say anything. Mr. Benedict sat down and tapped his fingers on the top of his desk. Pretty soon our room sounded like a pet store full of birds. Every second there was another peep. It was hard not to giggle. When Nancy kicked me under the table, I knew it was my turn. I looked down and erased my answer to a problem. While I was blowing the eraser dust away, I said, peep. By the time Mr. Benedict looked my way, another peep came from across the room. I think it was Philip Leroy. We kept waiting for Mr. Benedict to say something, but he didn't. When we came in the next morning, our desks had been rearranged. Instead of 4 tables, our desks formed one big U shape across the room. There were name cards taped onto each desk. On one side, I was next to Freddie Barnett, who I didn't like at all. I knew for a fact that he was a troublemaker because I saw him stand behind Jay Hassler on the first day of school, and just as Jay was about to sit down, Freddie Barnett pulled his chair away. Jay wound up on the floor. I hate kids who do that. I'd have to be very careful not to fall into the trap of the lobster. That's what we called him because on the first day of school he was sunburned bright red. But on the other side of me, things were even worse. I was next to Laura Denker. I was afraid to even look her way. Nancy warned me that reputations were catching. Well, I didn't have to worry because Laura didn't look my way either. She looked straight ahead. Naturally, the 4 PTSs were all separated. But Nancy, that lucky, got to sit next to Philip Leroy. Of course she did. There wasn't any more peeping. Mr. Benedict reminded us of our social studies test the next day. That afternoon, we had gym. The boys got to play basketball with Mr. Benedict. The girls were left with the gym teacher, Miss Abbott, who told us to line up in order of size. I was third from the end. Janie was first. Laura Denker was last. Gretchen and Nancy were in the middle. After we lined up, Miss Abbott talked about posture and how important it is to stand up straight. No matter how tall you are, you must never slouch, because height is such a blessing. With that, Miss Abbott stood up and took some deep breaths. She must have been at least 6 feet tall. Janie and I looked at each other and giggled. We clearly were blessed. Then Miss Abbott told us since we were in 6th grade and very grown up, there were certain subjects we would be covering during the school year. Certain very private subjects just for the girls. That was all she said, but I got the idea. Why do they wait until 6th grade when you already know everything? That night, I really worked hard. I read the first 2 chapters of my social studies book 4 times. Then I sat on my bedroom floor and did my exercises. I must increase my bust. I did it 35 times, then climbed into bed. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. I just did an exercise to help me grow. Have you thought about it, God? About my growing, I mean. I've got a bra now. It would be nice if I had something to put in it. Of course, if you don't think I'm ready, I'll understand. I'm having a test in school tomorrow. Please let me get a good grade on it, God. I want you to be proud of me. Thank you. The next morning, Mr. Benedict passed out the test paper himself. The questions were already on the board. He said to begin as soon as we got our paper. Freddie the lobster poked me and whispered, "No name." "What do you mean, no name?" I whispered back. Freddie whispered, "Nobody signs his name. Benedict won't know whose paper is whose. Get it?" I got it all right, but I didn't like it. Especially since I'd read the chapter like 4 times. But if nobody was going to put a name on the test paper, well, I wasn't going to do it either. I felt cheated, though, because Mr. Benedict would never know how hard I had studied. I answered all the questions in 15 minutes. Mr. Benedict asked Janie to collect the papers for him. I couldn't imagine what he would do to us when we found out that nobody had put their name on the test. I figured he'd be plenty mad, but you can't do much to a whole class except keep them after school. We couldn't all be expelled, could we? I wonder. Nail biter. Okay, I'm going to end it there. Chapter 8. Yeah, because it's what time? Oh, perfect. It's 8 o'clock. So that was 40 minutes. I'm really grateful that you all joined me. Thanks so much, you guys. Dawn. Hey, Dawn. Emily. Good to see you guys. And for anybody who didn't catch till the end, of course, you can watch it. Just look it up on my news feed or look it up under albums and then videos, and they're all there. Every delightful video I've ever done is there. I was also going to say, if you think there's anybody who might enjoy this as much as you do, then feel free to share it, because my page is totally public. And so I would love to have whoever join us, and anyone who you think might enjoy. Ben, hi Ben, yay. Didn't you know that you could do that? You could find the videos just sitting there. You can fantasize about the heels and all that. Anyway, thanks to all you guys. Hugs and kisses. Take care of yourselves and each other. Have a wonderful evening. I'll be back on Thursday at the same time, 7:10-ish. And again, we'll continue with the madcap adventures of Margaret and her friends. I love you all. Take care. Have a good night. And I can never figure out how to turn this damn thing off.